I'm John Dennis. I'm running against Nancy Pelosi.
We have the most beautiful state and one of the most beautiful places in the world, and people are leaving.
I'm gonna catch you when all the cameras aren't around, and I'm gonna you up. I'm tired.
He's the chairman of the San Francisco GOP, and he's running against House Speaker Nancy Pelosi.
Step back, everyone.
Gone for a little while. It's Monday, June 7th. Happy to be here. Happy to see you. Had a bunch of stuff going on last week, so I wasn't able to be here live. Got to bear with me a second. I got to switch these glasses. Thanks for joining. Things are just starting to get going on the campaign trail, but I've got a couple of issues that I have to go back to previous campaigns. And what I mean is, in this town, in San Francisco, there aren't many people who want to run for office as a Republican. So I've run for other offices other than what I'm doing now for Congress. I ran for supervisor in one of the districts, and San Francisco is a city and a county. And so we don't have a city council, we have a county board of supervisors. And so the city's, the city/county is carved up into districts, and there are district supervisors, and we have 11 of them. And I ran for the one in my district, District 2, a few years back. And at the time, there was a couple of things I was trying to accomplish, and a couple of messages that I wanted to get across. The first message was that the underlying philosophy of the progressive left in particular, but the left in general, is not something that's going to increase the quality of life of people in any particular place. And so what we're seeing is there's this sort of fervent, loyalty to an orthodoxy here. And if you don't have that orthodoxy, that is the orthodoxy meaning the philosophy, the belief system of a certain group, if you don't follow that orthodoxy, it really rather limits your political career. And so it makes it difficult for standard politicians to speak outside of that orthodoxy. On the other hand, the orthodoxy is failing in San Francisco. So, why are we continuing to advocate this philosophy, which is destroying the city? I mean, destroying a really great place. And it's just because people are cowards, and they're not willing to take risks with their careers, or even though it might grow and improve the quality of life in a certain place in a city. So for example, when I ran for supervisor, one of the things that I put out there was we have to stop calling what we have in San Francisco, what we see on the streets where people are living, we have to stop calling it homelessness, because it's not a homeless problem. A very limited number of people, end up on the streets because they got pushed out, and they just can't afford a place or something like that. Because don't forget, when rent's expensive, that also means that wages are higher, and people tend to be able to find these things out. It's only when you have some mental illness, or you have an addiction to drugs, where you forego the basic things you need to do in order to keep your addiction going, some combination of mental illness and drug addiction, where you end up living out on the streets. It's a very narrow band of people who fall through the cracks in society. And it's usually only a temporary thing. But what we're seeing now is long-term homelessness. You see people, living out on the sidewalks for very long periods of time. I can go down, and if anybody has the interest in seeing it, I can go down and just show you the places where people are living in San Francisco in droves on street after street after street, and seems to have gotten dramatically worse. From the eye test, it looks like it's gotten dramatically worse, despite the fact that the numbers that the official numbers the city puts out doesn't seem to indicate that it has, but it seems worse, and that's because we have a drug addiction problem. We don't have a homeless problem, and that was what I was saying back then, that we've got to deal with the drug addiction problem. Now, I'm in a personally weird spot with this because as a libertarian, I got to say I'm against the drug war. I don't want people to do drugs. But I think the drug war has been an abject failure. I mean, that's pretty evident. The fact that we're trying to do interdiction, trying to prevent drugs from coming into a country. We can't prevent drugs from getting into maximum security prisons. Somehow we're going to prevent drugs from getting into the country. It's a ludicrous prospect. But so I'm not a drug warrior. So I've got this weird thing where I know these products are killing people in large numbers, specifically in this case, the combination of opioids and more specifically fentanyl. So I don't want to interdict in that way, or to prevent people from using. In fact, I actually think, as Portugal showed by when they legalized it, or I should say decriminalized drugs, starting back in 2005, I think it was, that. And we have a test case, where drug consumption actually went down. So I have this thing where I don't want to extend the drug war, and at the same time, allowing people to do drugs on our streets is clearly not good for anybody. Certainly not for the people who are living on the streets. There are no alternatives for them now. So anyway, along comes this guy, Michael. People know him, Michael Schellenberger. Let's pull that article up. And put it up here. I met Michael a couple of weeks ago at a event here in town. There's a mom who, in fact, she's in this picture. You'll see her right here at the very end. She's in the white shirt. Her son is alive, but he is caught in the trap of drug addiction in the Tenderloin, and she hasn't seen him. So we actually were in the Tenderloin in San Francisco, protesting where her, for her son, who is caught up in a fentanyl problem, and he can't get out of it. And what do you do? So back in 2018, when I ran for supervisor, I recognized the problem on a couple of different levels. Recognized I'm going to stick true to my own beliefs. I don't believe drug interdiction is the way to go. But I will say that because there's no quality control on, or limited quality control on what gets put out on the street, that because it's all under the radar kind of business, that means that uneven product and impure product is going to end up in people and is going to kill them. So I said back then, listen, don't arrest people for being homeless. Don't arrest them for being poor, which is a stupid statement. But people who are on drugs are not, excused from following the laws that the rest of us are following. I'm not. If you find a well-dressed guy walking down the street, if he went and there was a cop car parked on a sidewalk, and he went and took a dump in front of that cop car, dropped his pants, and pooped on the sidewalk in front of that cop, the cop, I think, would arrest him. So, so there's what we have is a set of rules that apply to people who actually pay taxes, and a set of rules for people who don't pay taxes who just destroy our streets, and you can't have that. So my thought was that's the one element that's actually missing from, or one of many elements that's missing from our approach to this homeless problem. So what we need to do is, continue to first of all stop supporting it by creating incentives for people to come do drugs in our town by giving them needles and that sort of thing. First of all, the government shouldn't be doing it. If private interests want to do that, not for profit, that's their game. So get the city government out of that business. But what we should do is we should instead of making it hospitable for people to come here to do drugs and live on our sidewalks, well, make it a little inhospitable and create the leverage where you force people to confront their lifestyle and what they're doing to themselves, and give them an opportunity to get through drug rehab. So I had a whole program organized for this. Well, along comes Michael Schellenberger. He's been actually involved on and off with this topic for some years. As I mentioned, I met him last week, and he has a really nice article in Substack addressing a few of these issues. And this guy, Tom Wolfe, was drug addicted 3 years ago on the streets of San Francisco. So it's an interesting read. I would highly recommend you give it a look. Michael Schellenberger on Substack, Why Drug Abuse, Not Climate Change is America's Biggest Problem. I'll come back to that in a second. But I do want to say that the one element, I just DM'd Michael, I don't know if he'll get back to me, but I think there's one element of his program that he's missing. And what he's basically saying in here in terms of success in dealing with this issue, success that was seen in a number of European towns, Amsterdam and a few other places, was that they created both a carrot and a stick. So, the carrot is, we'll get you into programs that can help you, but the stick is that you're going to be forced off the streets, and if you violate living on the streets and doing those things on the streets that are illegal, we're going to arrest you and put you in jail. And so, that's effectively what he's saying here. That's how European countries have been successful in dealing with this issue, and that's what we need to do moving forward. And here's the one element that I think he's missing, and that is that all of these people, everyone who's written about this topic, seems to want to cure the problem on a societal basis. And I appreciate looking at it from that macro level. But what I think instead, what you need test cases of success first and foremost in the United States on this matter. And secondly, that you can't control. You can only work on the things that you can control. You can't control society. Can't do that. I mean, you can influence it, I suppose, on a number of levels. But if we're dealing with the problem in an acute way here in San Francisco, ways that they're not dealing with in Tulsa, Oklahoma, with homeless drug addiction. If they're not, then what we need to do is say, okay, I don't know what they're going to do in Oakland, California. I don't know what they're going to do in San Mateo, San Jose, Fremont, any of those places in terms of drug addiction. But I am going to, if I'm mayor of the city, draw a line around town and say, I'm going to eradicate this problem in San Francisco. I can't cure the societal problem. All I can do is, as to the reasons why people are getting addicted to drugs in the first place. I can't, do that. But what I can do as mayor of San Francisco is I can just say we have a no tolerance policy within the city limits of San Francisco, and there we are going to eradicate this problem by making it inhospitable for people to be drug addicted and homeless on our streets. It's that simple. And I think that's something that Michael is missing here. It's what I would talk to him about if we connect. You have to do it. I'm going to use this. It's going to be a little provocative for people who don't like Donald Trump, but I'm going to say it. We need a San Francisco first policy when it comes to drug addiction. We have the biggest problem. We have to solve all of our own problem here. We can't solve society's problem. And I'm sorry if we end up driving people who want to live this lifestyle into places like Oakland and San Jose and that sort of thing. But San Jose can also follow, and Oakland can follow our model that's successful in making San Francisco succeed. Most of the people who are here living drug addicted on our streets are not from here. They're not. It's a lie to say that they are. They tried to peddle that lie back in 2018 when I was running for supervisor, and it's all complete nonsense. So if someone pushed their drug addiction problem onto us, we have no obligation to indulge that problem here in this town. We can force it out of our city limits as well. So let's sort of recap here. Yes, Schellenberger is right. You got to address it with carrot and stick. You got to give people opportunities, set up the program so that you can get them into a drug rehab. They've got to be sort of long term, because people don't always, drug rehab doesn't take most frequently. So you got to stay there. You've got to have those programs ongoing. Two, you've got to have, so that would be the stick. The carrot would be getting their lives back. The stick would be enforcing the laws on the streets, and forcing people into into a choice that they have to make, either jail or rehab. And third, don't think of it as a societal problem. Think of it as a quality of life problem in the city in which you govern. If you're the chief executive, i.e. the mayor of that town, you can't, you can talk with people. You can try and help be a person, a catalyst, or a person who contributes to the relief of the cause and discovering what the cause is. But the immediate problem is that we've got a ton of people living and dying on the streets of San Francisco. More people died of drug addiction by a drug overdose last year than they did of COVID. And what Michael's article, and this is the last point I'll make about this, is saying that, he's also a guy who spent a lot of time studying the climate change issues. Takes a pretty reasonable approach. You can put that up? Yeah, thanks. It's up. So, and so he addresses that, that's in this article. He's saying that America's biggest problem is not climate change. And he starts off by saying that, Joe Biden is proposing to spend $1.7 trillion on climate change. Meanwhile, if you look at the worst possible outcomes as predicted by the IPCC and the IPCC, I think it is, and other agencies, there's no way that climate change is going to kill as many people as drug addiction is. Just no way. Meanwhile, we're spending a pittance on the drug addiction problem, and the IPCC, I should say, and we are not addressing in any meaningful way the problem of all the fentanyl deaths. I have one other really radical proposal. I'm going to put it out there, but I think we have to think about this as a possibility, and I want you to hear this really carefully. In the Cold War, we had what was called mutually assured destruction, MAD. That is, that we had so many nuclear weapons, and the Soviet Union had so many nuclear weapons that if a war broke out, it guaranteed the annihilation of both countries, if not the better part of the planet. So nobody was interested in pushing the buttons and starting that nuclear war, because there was some balance. Well, look, China is clearly targeting the United States. They know who the fentanyl makers are. They know they know where they live. They know everything about them. They know how they're selling it. They know how the distribution methods, that they're shipping it into Mexico, and Mexico is running it up across the border through their normal cocaine and marijuana distribution networks through there. So they're running the fentanyl into the country. And we're a big, wealthy country, so they're effectively targeting us. China is targeting us with a deadly product that is killing tens of thousands of Americans every year. And it's a war. Scott Adams has talked about this. I think it's really true. Here's a little dirty bit of business. Let's create a mutually. One prospect is, and I'm mulling this over, and I'm happy thinking about it as a policy thing, is that our we spend a lot of money and a lot of time bioengineering drugs and that sort of thing. Sooner or later somebody's going to come up with the idea that a targeted designer gene or designer drug that is targeted at the Chinese people that completely addicts them is something that we ought to develop and start pushing into China, making China completely addicted to this drug in order to get China to stop sending poisonous fentanyl into this country. Something to consider. Just put it out there, but I think somebody's going to make that argument at some point, and there are going to be so many angry parents out there who have lost, children to this drug that wouldn't surprise me that if you see some dramatic support for that. Okay, let's move on. Next topic. Let's move over to Kamala. This is actually going to be a fairly short topic, and then I want to tell you a quick story about something I saw this weekend that really disturbed me. In fact, this thing woke me up in the middle of the night last night, and maybe I'm overreacting to it, but I want to get your point of view. Okay, so let's listen to this interesting thing, and I'll give you my take on it. This is Kamala Harris. She's in Guatemala, and she's sending a message to Guatemala migrants: do not come to America. Now let's listen.
I emphasize that the goal of our work is to help Guatemalans find hope at home. At the same time, I want to be clear to folks in this region who are thinking about making that dangerous trek to the United States-Mexico border. Do not come. Do not come. The United States will continue to enforce our laws and secure our border. There are legal methods by which migration can and should occur. But we, as one of our priorities, will discourage illegal migration. And I believe if you come to our border, you will be turned back. So let's discourage our friends, our neighbors, our family members from embarking on what is otherwise an extremely dangerous journey, where in large part the only people who benefit are coyotes.
So here's an interesting little thing here. There's a couple of parts here. First of all, she's telling them, do not come. This is after, I almost don't know where to begin, but let's start with this. There's no particular order of how deeply offensive this whole thing is. First of all of the Democrats, including Kamala Harris, at one point or another, called Donald Trump unforgivably awful names for telling people not to come. Called him a racist, called him terrible things because he wanted to protect the border. And that's effectively what she's proposing here is a protection of the border. So there's massive hypocrisy here. Secondly, I don't believe a word of it. I don't believe that she wants this message out there for a minute because the big business interests in the country want to keep wages down, keep profits up, and so they are on board with having lots of people run across the border. I will give her a little credit. I mean, one thing that she said that she's down there now to find ways to help Guatemala to keep their people from coming up here in the first place, which is really critical. But anyway, coming back to this, she also says that if you come to the border, I believe you will be turned away. Now, she knows for a fact that that's a lie. Because first of all, people are not coming to ports. She knows she didn't say ports of entry. She said coming to the border. Ports of entry, they're not. At ports of entry, they're really not turning people away. Biden stopped the Remain in Mexico policy that Trump indicated. So if you come to a port of entry, you're getting in. If you're go to the border, cross illegally, and you get caught, you're probably going to get in too. So I don't believe that she believes a word of it. But what this strikes me as is an attempt to cover her butt. Not just her butt, but the Biden administration. Oh, look, we said this. We said don't come to the United States from Guatemala. Stay home. But they send out a second message, the real message, which is that there's no enforcement at the border, and that people can come in droves, and that's what they want because they're future Democrat voters. So this to me is a cover your ass video. That's all it is. It's insulting, and it's also it's really infuriating considering how they treated Trump for actually pursuing the policy which they're stating here, but actually doing it, and that is just another part of the Biden Harris hypocrisy that they don't want to cover. Okay, let me move on to the final topic. I'm a little reluctant to tell this story because I don't want. Maybe I'm overreacting. I don't know. I'm going to just put this out here. I ran into somebody recently. Let me just say, and oh shoot, I don't even want if I'm going to put it out. I started the conversation, but it's just really been bothering me. And I saw a young family give their child a soft drink, soda pop, name brand, Coke, Pepsi, something like that, to a 1-year-old who went to town on that drink, and so it was evident that this wasn't the first time that the child knew what was in that cup and what was there and wanted to drink it. And to me, my thoughts on it is that it's like a form of child abuse, frankly. I mean, if you're giving a 1-year-old a cup of soda, I don't care if you're giving them a little taste of soda. If you're giving us a 1-year-old, some corn syrup driven, any sugary drink, but especially one that has corn syrup and that sort of stuff, you are, it's a form of child abuse. I'm sorry. I felt terrible watching that. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. I'm not on especially good terms with the people I saw who did this. I'm certainly not close to them. But at the same time, I feel terrible for that child's future because, what they're doing to that child's biochemistry, and what they're doing to the kid's liver and getting it addicted to corn syrup at such a young age. If they stay on that track, they're almost guaranteed to have obesity and all sorts of health problems. And you're seeing it in a 1-year-old. It's so freaking irresponsible to do that. Again, listen, maybe I don't understand the science of this or I'm missing this. I think I understand it perfectly well. Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe people do this sort of thing, but I can just say I would never even consider giving that to a child. Never. So in any event, it's a story. It's a thing that's really been bugging me since I saw it. I don't want to get into it any more than that, but I would be interested in your feedback. Tell me what you think. And maybe it'll either fire me up more about it or kind of like calm me down and let me know that it's not the end of the world that this is happening. But as a parent who's been through this, I would again just never consider giving an infant, a 1-year-old, this kind of a drink because I think and clearly getting them addicted on it very early. I think it's a recipe for disaster. But that's me. Okay, folks, that's it for the day. I'm gonna sign off. I'm gonna not be here tomorrow, but I will be back on Thursday. We're gonna try and create some other content for tomorrow. When I say I'm not gonna be here tomorrow, I'm not gonna be here live tomorrow. So we may have some other content that we post that won't be live, but we will be back live on Thursday at 2 p.m. on the West Coast and 5 p.m. on the East Coast. Please follow us on Twitter at RealJohnDennis on Twitter and on Instagram, and the John Dennis Report on YouTube. Thank you very much. We'll see you soon. Bye.